Mm. United States, you're in a pickle and a jam. You know you're in a pickle and a jam. You've even been telling the world about your pickle and your jam. Australia has a little bit of arrogance at the moment because Mr. Potato Head got turned into chips. Sorry, Dado. Don't mean you any disrespect, actually. There's actually pride in the Australian community at the moment that Dado bowed out gracefully and Albert accepted gracefully, and they were both respectful to one another. It's bad humour. Okay, don't mean to mean any personal offence. Anyway. Sorry. Anyway. Let's have a talk about this one. Which one? Bernie Sanders. Let's have a talk about Bernie Sanders and what he's doing wrong. Is what he's doing wrong. As a political opportunist, I've seen that time is right to talk about oligarchy, as though it was this new thing that nobody had ever heard of before. It's actually a word from ancient Greece. It's not a new idea at all. It's ruled by the few. So he's been parrying on about this thing called oligarchy, as though it just showed up yesterday when Trump showed up. And to be fair, 110 days or so is pretty much yesterday, right? In the grand scheme of things. If he was a little bit more firebrand, his speech might go something like this. Bernie Sanders is not qualified to stand before you here today and to tell you how to fight oligarchy when he's been a senator for the United States government for quite some time now and has failed to adequately communicate that idea to the American public the entire time he was there. Perhaps this idea of oligarchy was something that he was saying years and years ago, but it fell on deaf ears because, like frogs in a pot of water set to low heat on the stove, the temperature wasn't high enough for them to notice the water boiling, and now they're willing to jump out. And as the American public is jumping over that, out of that melting pot they once called the USA, Bernie Sanders is standing in the kitchen with the other chefs, screaming about oligarchy to the frog. And the frog is saying, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. Some scientists got some telescreens, just like the book 1984. A few decades ago they did this, sometime in the late 1960s as it turns out, and they put the telescreens in front of the frog while it was still in the pot. And they showed the frog some stories. At that point, the water was on a low boil, a very low heat. So people didn't notice that the water was heating up. The frog watched the telescreen, and the telescreen said, The moon landing has happened and America is a great country. And the frog said, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. Martin Luther King said he had a dream. And the frog danced a little bit excitedly, just like with the moon landing, and said, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. JFK said, you need to be aware of shadowy forces in the government that are operating as an extension of, but aren't truly your lawful representatives. Which, by the way, is a paraphrase. It's not his exact words, but the idea is there. And the frog went, ribbit, 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 as the telescreen showed JFK being shot. Then the telescreen showed the Vietnam War. And the frog said, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. Then the telescreen showed frog-like people with placards saying the Vietnam War was wrong. And the frog said, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. Then Ronald Reagan became president. This is what they were showing on the telescreen. And the frog said, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. The frog was told that Ronald Reagan was popular because he was in the movies. And the frog said, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. Ronald Reagan joined the Heritage Foundation as part of a greater system of lobby groups using the foundations as a means to, have corporations and other groups lobby political parties and give them donations, acting as fake think tanks and advisory boards. The frog wasn't shown that on the telescreen. They were just showing that there was a think tank that was helping them think. And the frog said, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. Then the telescreen said, well, Martin Luther King didn't deserve to be shot, and his dream speech was really good. So you're going to have a public holiday, and it's going to be Martin Luther King Day, and it's going to be the same day as the presidential inauguration. And the frog said, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. While all of those things were going on, there was all kinds of interesting things that happened in that time. The CIA installed the Taliban in Afghanistan to help overthrow the KGB, which led to the creation of Al-Qaeda. Osama bin Laden's family was friends with George W. Bush. After the Reagan era, there was the Bush era, the man who was friends with bin Laden. Perhaps he was elected as a consequence of Saudi oil money. Ribbit, 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 said the frog, not noticing, knowing, or caring, with the telescreen not telling them that. Then Bill Clinton got him. And the telescreen said, there's a interesting stain on Monica Lewinsky's dress. But Bill Clinton is saying that he did not have relations with that woman. And the frog went, ribbit, 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 ribbit. And the reason why the frog went, ribbit, 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 is because for the previous 40 years, Bernaysian marketing tactics have been used. By that point, they were used to seeing big titty women singing songs and boob jobs for actresses and paparazzis chasing them and telling people about their stools, colour, size and consistency. And it had become an expectation that you would be a success if you were a corporate corporate honcho, if you were a millionaire or a billionaire, if you were a CEO. And failing that, a beautiful actress with paparazzi chasing you and telling everyone about said stools. And the frog said, ribbit, 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 ribbit. This drama continued through many wars. At some point in the past, not necessarily that particular point in time, the telescreen showed that Pinochet had taken over Chile as a dictator, but didn't show that the USA CIA had overthrown the duly elected leader of Chile so that Pinochet could take over. People continued on. The frog said ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. By the time the 2000s came along, and September 11, Al-Qaeda had decided that it didn't want American money anymore, or Russian, and it was probably fond of Saudi money, or Iranian money, or whatever it was propaganda that the CIA decided they were getting their money from. We don't actually know the answer. As the September 11 attacks happened, which just so happened to coincide with a plan the Heritage Foundation made about 10 years before that, called the Patriot Act. And as the frog was shown on the telescreen, that the World Trade Center was falling, and they had no means to figure out who did it or why, because the planes were literally hitting the building as they were saying this. They said, "Oh, some Saudi nationals have done it. We found their passports." Now, how did they know that? Did they get that information from air traffic control? Did air traffic control say that those two planes had left their respective airports, and that they had a manifest a list, a passengers list, and they knew exactly which ones had done it? Oh wait, they probably did. But anyway, it's amazing how quickly they figured that out, but how difficult it was to intercept the planes. Oh, yawn. They had stealth planes for at least a decade before that. Actually, more. You know those V-shaped ones? They can chase people. They can cloak. They can go Mark 2, Mark 3, or whatever it is. And the general public sat in a pot and said, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. And they got told that it was Saddam Hussein's fault. And the frog said, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. And then The Hague, after Iraq was invaded, said George Bush Jr. and his administration lied. They actually knew that Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction. And the frog said, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. And by that point, there was the internet. And on the internet, people said lots of things, including complete BS. But no one was completely sure it was the people saying it, because the anonymity of the internet meant that the CIA posed as anonymous. And the frog said, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. Then the NSA co-founded Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg. And the early users of Facebook trace-routed the Facebook service through the NSA servers, partly as a consequence of the Patriot Act, which was enforced at the time. And the frog in the pot said, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. And then the social media blew up, became very popular. And the frog said, ribbit, 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 ribbit. And each one held a telescreen in their hand by that point. Not just one by the sides, experimenting with the chefs. By the time that happened, Google had developed search engine optimization, which meant that it was possible to use social media, such as Facebook and others, to derive statistical information about particular demographics for the purposes of optimizing particular informational results to said target audiences, as well as crafting particular demographics on the basis of information saturation. So what that meant is MAGA was created through search engine optimization, targeting specific demographics in the United States of America for the purposes of creating a cult. And likewise, the Democrat Party and other groups were treated in a similar fashion, but with slightly different ideas. And the polarization of the United States of America was assured, not by Bin Laden scaring them, but by their tech bro billionaires convincing them to live on two extreme polarities so that Donald Trump could get in. And one of his first executive orders was to approve Stargate artificial intelligence as part of a greater military-industrial complex problem, which involves killbots being used in foreign theatres of war. Artificial intelligence being used to selectively target the telephones of alleged dissidents at home in the United States for United States civilians and abroad, based on what they post on social media, to the point where after Mr. Musk bought Twitter, his company or a similar company was able to access the telephone numbers of Black American civilians from their social media accounts and personally text message them after Trump was elected, threatening them that they would be taken back to the plantation. That same Mr. Musk did a Nazi salute on Martin Luther King Day. And while the Democratic Republic, so primed by search engine optimization, did a reactionary move to go after Tesla Motors so that Chinese companies would flourish in its wake, they failed to go after OpenAI. They failed to go after Google. They failed to go after Facebook. They failed to go after Stargate AI. They failed to go after the robotics industry. They failed to go after Neuralink. And instead begged for Musk, who had managed to weasel his way into the American Treasury to screw up all of their fucking pensions, to go away. And while that was going on, and Russia gloated in everyone's face about Mr. Trump being Agent Krasnov since 1987, meaning a treasonous fool is sitting on the presidential chair right now, he had them complaining about Sesame Street. When Mr. Musk was on television talking about who paid the protesters to have a crack at Tesla, why, we know who it was. It was Mr. Musk. His artificial intelligence companies, although he allegedly left OpenAI, he has been involved in others, have corporate feet in more than one country. That includes China. That means American artificial intelligence companies are associated with Chinese artificial intelligence companies, and OpenAI and DeepSeek might as well be the same thing. As a consequence, it is obviously the case that China paid the protesters, who were none other than Mr. Musk and his associates, being prepared to take a corporate hit at Tesla to avoid being taken at the companies that really needs to be taken: OpenAI, Stargate AI, Google, Facebook, Twitter, SpaceX Corporation, Neuralink, and Starlink. After all, with electronic voting booths in the United States of America, is it not the case that Starlink could have rigged the election in some places? Is it not the case that Donald Trump bragged in a Fox News video about how they rigged the election? They have admitted to rigging the election. They have admitted to their associations with those things. It is staring in the face of the American public and the world writ large. But only now Bernie Sanders wants to talk about oligarchy and these other groups? Why? Do you mean to say when those woolly left-wing leftists, who by the way are not neoliberals, the actual left, not the Democrat Party, were saying for years that you need to watch for that boiling water frog, and all it said was ribbit, 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 that maybe, just maybe, they were Chicken Little, who was complaining that the sky was falling too soon? But what about those on the right, who are also concerned about corporations, albeit with a racist, sexist twist that was designed to throw the left off by focusing on the human rights abuses those would entail, as opposed to the greater storyline of technological and political fascistic enslavement? USA, your frog's pot has boiled over and the frog has jumped out. His name is Donald Trump. He thinks he is the American people. But he is not. He's one of the chefs in the kitchen. And it's time that particular business got shut down. It has bases of operations in several different places. One is the USSF headquarters in Maui. Another is a tech operation in Memphis, Tennessee. Another is Saratoga, California, and Palo Alto in California. Another base of operations is an island off the coast of West Africa, typically referred to as Atlantis despite not actually being the case. It's in the general direction of where the island Atlantis used to be, and island is the correct word, not continent. It was a case about 25 years ago. You could see the sunken islands using Google Earth, in case you're wondering. They've since covered up those images. Anyway, not 25 years ago, sorry. Google Earth's more recent than that. Anyhow, who would have known that there was a facility there that was connected up to a vast network of computers associated with the International Military Industrial Complex that Starlink was tapping into to fuck with people's phones, fuck with people's computers, connected up to this the search engine AI algorithms to collectively steer the information available to the community to prevent them from doing things like blowing up Black Rock. I mean, to be fair, a Cybertruck is not controlling your stock exchange. Neither is Terrace. The Aladdin software of BlackRock and Vanguard, however, is, and you might want to do something about that. So that's the problem with the American left. It's exactly like the American right. It's been acting like a frog in the fucking pot, going ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. And it's only just gotten shocked enough by the heat to jump out. And that frog is not fucking welcome in any other country. Because as far as every other country is concerned, both the Democrat and the Republican Party are MAGA. And we're sick of hearing your shit. As for Bernie Sanders, he's just another Fruit Loop. He's discovered a word that the ancient Greeks used 3,000 years ago and just pulled it out of his ass. If you assholes over there are going to do protests, do it fucking properly. You already know, you've got commentators that already know about things like BlackRock. Australians and people around the world are hearing it from people like them. But why you talk and you talk and you talk. Okay? And you get your Google AdSense social search engine optimizations up. You're not saying the things that need to be said to get the job done. You're not saying how to organise, how to protest, what to protest. You're just saying, did you know they're doing this and did you know they're doing that? And usually with fear-based aggression and anger, often the ones commenting on the ones they ought to be complaining about, which is of course the American hard right, the fascists. Of course it's okay to complain about them. That's not the issue. The issue is while they're talking about shock and awe tactics and fear-based mind control tactics, they've been using it on the general public of the world. Because those same search engine optimization principles are meaning that people in other countries are once again being harassed by American crap. I mean, as if it's not enough to have a military base in the centre of your fucking continent that was there to do the drone warfare in question and the surveillance state stuff in question and was put there in direct response to the United Kingdom literally dropping nukes on South Australia. And for your American companies and French companies and others to continue weapons testing in the area ever since. Well, you assholes are just discovering that your country is a problem. Pinochet has been and gone, and Australia is sick of getting bombed. This is how America treats their allies. No wonder their enemies hate them.